Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Well, coming away in just a second is The Late Show Live with Bev Turner. We've just done the front pages here, Bev, and there's the usual guff on it, really, about Rachel Reeves knackering the economy, what home Prince Andrew's going to live in, and the fact that we appear to be about to put illegal migrants in military barracks in both Scotland and southern England. But the thing I'm fascinated to hear is what you said about Charlie Kirk's killer actually appearing in court today. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Tyler Robinson was in court today and he had a victory, actually, from his side. And we're going to be talking to a former FBI agent about what this might mean. There appear to be all sorts of holes, frankly, in that case. There's all sorts of theories that are anomalous to what we're being told. But anyway, the courts will, of course, decide. But yeah, we'll be telling you about that, what's happened here. He's been in court in Utah today. And we're expecting Trump to be sitting down any minute now. Well, he's going to be greeting in our time the Japanese Prime Minister. We think in the studio here that her name is pronounced Sanai Takachi. But we will have worked that out by the time she comes on air.
I won't try it. I'm in enough trouble. I'm in enough trouble without trying the name of the the Japanese leader, I think, Bev.
So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be covering, obviously, we're going to be talking a bit about the blame game that's going on about the Epping migrant sexual offender whose fault was it? I don't know about you, I am absolutely sick of politicians blaming each other for these sorts of things when they go wrong. I don't see how it can be the Conservatives' fault, frankly.
Well, ultimately, it's obviously the fault of whoever let him go, right? I mean, on the front of The Guardian, actually, they're saying ministers warned not to scapegoat prison staff over the sex offender case. Well, to be fair, it was a member of the prison staff that let Britain's most notorious foreign sex offender wander out onto the streets of Chelmsford. So at some point, someone is going to have to be scapegoated for this.
But, Patrick, nothing is ever anybody's fault, remember?
No.
It's 2025. That's terribly old-fashioned of you to think that somebody might be held accountable for anything whatsoever. We live in the age of the accountability deficit, don't we? Right, we're good to see you, my friend. We will be moving on. I'm going to be here until 2 o'clock in the morning. See you tomorrow, Patrick. This is, of course, The Late Show Live. On The Late Show Live tonight, President Donald Trump is in Japan as part of his colourful diplomatic tour of Asia. We're hoping to see him very soon meet Sanai Takaichi, the newly elected ultra-conservative Japanese Prime Minister who admired Margaret Thatcher, no less. That's not her, because she is in fact a woman. We'll be bringing you that as soon as it happens. Also, breaking tonight, panic has hit Western Turkey. There's a powerful 6.1 magnitude earthquake, which has sent residents running from their homes into the streets. We're going to bring you the very latest from Turkey. Also tonight.
It was the choices that his party made through 14 years of chaos. They said that they were the government of security and safety. They oversaw rising violent crime.
The blame game. I am sure you are as sick as I am of spineless politicians blaming each other when things go wrong. This time, Justice Secretary David Lammy blaming the Conservatives for the accidental release of the Epping migrant sex offender. Nice try. Also, tonight, we're going to be reviewing tomorrow's papers through both British and American eyes, and I want to hear from you as well, of course, on our website this evening. We're going to be talking about the incoming generational ban on smoking. How does America manage smoking? What can we learn from here in the US to stop the next generation of Brits becoming addicted? I think vapes, frankly, are more of a problem now than cigarettes, aren't they? We are live, of course, in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House. We're bringing you the stories that America is talking about, including the Charlie Kirk murder suspect Tyler Robinson appeared in court in Utah today and secured an initial victory for his side of the story. We'll tell you all about it with a former FBI agent. Also tonight.
It's time to act. Fight like hell. There's no time to give up. It's time to get up.
Well, Biden's back. Someone's pumped his tyres up. The former American president attacks what he calls the dark days under Donald Trump and urges Americans to get up. So stay up. I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. So, as we told you already, President Donald Trump is set to meet Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi on his second stop of this week-long diplomatic tour of Asia. Takaichi became the country's first female Prime Minister. The two leaders are going to hold talks and are expected to cover tariffs, regional security and Japan's defence spending. So, to unpack the significance of this, and we will bring it to you live as soon as they meet each other and shake hands, I'm joined by Adam Savitz, the Director of the China Policy Initiative. Good evening, Adam. Great to see you. So, first of all, how has this tour for Donald Trump been in Asia? A success?
I think so far it has been a success. Perhaps the most consequential thing for him is that he signed that or brokered that peace agreement between Thailand and Cambodia, something that wasn't on perhaps everyone's radar, and it was more of a border skirmish, but there were some bombings. It was a serious conflict, and this is another a win in his belt as far as bringing peace to various regions of the world. Of course, just coming off the Israel-Hamas truce, which hopefully will last. Another thing is that Secretary Bessent set the stage for the potential meeting with President Xi, which appears that it is on right now. And Bessent announced that general framework for that meeting is in place. And queued up this meeting with our Japanese ally, which frankly is our most important alliance in the Pacific.
Now, this new Prime Minister, in Japan, she's only been there for a week or so, but it seems that they will probably get along pretty well. She cites Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she's ultra-conservative. She cites the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher as one of her inspirations. So we should see a little bit of a meeting of minds here, I would have thought.
I agree. For the record, I'll say I'm saying Sanai Takaichi, but you know what? I don't speak Japanese either, so we'll go with what we go with. But not only is it the fact connection, but it's the fact that she is underlining the connection with former Prime Minister Abe of Japan, and that was one of the strongest international relationships that President Trump had. on a personal level, and also Abe instituted the concept of a free and open Indo-Pacific, which sort of guides the strategic vision of the Pacific that is sort of taken as common knowledge now. He was the vision behind the Quad, which is the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India, which is a loose defense alliance. But he's also the prime minister who said that the defense of Taiwan is the defense of Japan, and I agree with that, because those Japanese islands in the Okinawa prefecture are only about 90 miles off of Taiwan. In any sort of maneuver where China is making a move on Taiwan, Japan will be involved. They're important in that aspect in the alliance, and also because they have the most serious military in the alliance, even though they're sort of getting over their pacifist constitution. There have been moves already. Takaichi is saying that bans or restrictions on exporting defense products that have been in place in Japan may be gone soon.
Yeah, Adam, I could talk to you longer, but we've got a bit of a glitch on your line, my friend. So I'm just going to bring my panel in here. That was Adam Savitt, their director at the China Policy Initiative. I'm joined in the studio by Eric Ham and also Thomas Corbett-Dillon. Nice to see you, gentlemen. Thomas, let me come to you. When we were hearing from Adam then about the relationship that Donald Trump had with the former Prime Minister of Japan, that was the bloke that was assassinated.
Very sadly, yes.
In 2022.
Exactly, yeah, and they were very close friends, and I think that actually kind of did affect Trump quite impactful. You know, when that happened, I think he was very shocked by that. And you know what we're seeing with this new Prime Minister, she's really picking up the mantle that he left behind. As you say, they're calling her ultra conservative, but I love all these new things. There's far right, and then there's extreme right, and then there's all of these things. But they're labeling her ultra conservative. So I guess they're not calling her far right. Maybe you can't call the Japanese far right. But yeah, she seems to be doing well. The people like her, and she's really calling for remigration. She's talking about sending people home. They don't really want too many immigrants in Japan. They love their culture. They're very proud people. So we'll see what she does. It's quite exciting.
I think Japan, Eric, again, I don't think any of us here are experts on Japanese economics, as it were, or pronunciation, but I'm sure we can wing our way through this, gentlemen. They have very similar issues to lots of countries around the world, the same as the UK. They've got low wages, they've got rising prices. Takaichi has said that she wants to focus on rising consumer prices, which are a problem for her. They've got a shrinking population, they've got an aging population in Japan as well, which is leading to labour shortages. What can America get from this meeting, do you think? What is Donald Trump going to be looking for tonight?
Well, Donald Trump wants to see them purchasing more American goods. That's why you're going to see, we're told that they're going to be F-150s at the guest house where Donald Trump is staying.
So this is a Ford truck?
Yes, this is a Ford truck. It's a very popular vehicle.
Could you describe that truck to me?
It's a very, it actually comes, they do make them in electric. And in fact, when the entire electric boom was going on, this was a vehicle that was actually waitlisted. Like you had to wait like 5. Oh. In fact, it was so popular in America, they actually stopped taking orders for the F-150. I think it's called the F-150 Lightning, the electric vehicle. And again, Ford Motor Company is actually the largest automaker that has more of their products and their workers here in the United States. So Donald Trump is keen to actually want to see Ford do well, particularly given that they're losing $2 billion a year over these tariffs. But nevertheless, even though the tariffs have been reduced on Japan from 25% to 15%, he still wants to see them purchase more. But again, as you mentioned, given the squeeze that they're under with their own economy, it will be interesting to see, in fact, what type of agreement they can actually come to given the restraints that they have right now.
And am I right in thinking that they're not going to ask for a lot of these trucks? Like, isn't it like quite a small number of these trucks that Donald Trump wants to sell? It's not hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and it's
like
kind of interesting,
for her
right? And because this is a huge truck, and if you think Japan is actually famous for their sort of mini trucks, so you know this pickup truck going in is going to be a pretty big vehicle. They're actually appearing in England more and more. The pickup truck they're going after the transit vans.
I feel the need to describe these. Now, I took a few days off last week, as you know, and I drove up to a place called Shenandoah, and you guys are crazy on the roads, not least because you've got 6-lane highways and you're driving monsters like this.
Well,
see if we
I bought one. I have one of these. That's the car I drive in America. I bought one. It's the ultimate American car. You have to. You've got to embrace it. Right. So I've literally got one of those.
Come on, Katie, back in London. Let's find us a picture. Right. So it's basically, it's got 4 doors. It's got a flatbed. It's got all the bells and whistles. So it's basically a truck and a car.
It's the old. If you think of a pickup truck, it's every American movie. Every sort of frat star is driving one of these in all the movies. So it's the ultimate American car. I love it.
And so this is going to form a big part of this conversation, which we're hoping to bring you some of any minute now, with Trump being there in Asia. How do you think the rest of this trip has gone, Thomas, for Donald Trump? He certainly looks like he's enjoyed the colourfulness of the spectacle. Has been impressive.
He loves it, and you know, I think the craziest thing is that he doesn't stop. You know, so on Thursday he's hosting a Halloween party at the White House, which we're very excited about. We're hoping we're going to see him put a chocolate bar and another minion. That famous meme is going to be replicated. So yeah, you know, it's a whirlwind tour. I mean, and when was it? He was just over in Egypt. He does not stop. So, but I think the relationship with Japan is already pretty strong. This is kind of just cementing it. There's not too much to do on there. There's not that much of a riff. I think he's very happy with the new Prime Minister selection. So I think this is just sort of securing the relationship and sort of giving her a pat on the back and saying, you know, I'm supporting you.
Eric, does he risk though, the president at the moment, these whispers about the fact that he's spending too much time overseas and not dealing enough with the issues here in America?
Oh no, because we know, and the big announcement that came out is the framework of an agreement with China. And so that is going to, again, when the president comes home, he should be coming home with the wind at his back, given the fact that this has been a massive, massive trade war. And of course, the devil will be in the details. But if he can somehow get China to basically begin repurchasing soybeans from American farmers, that will be a huge boon for the United States, to say nothing, of course, if he can find some competitiveness, particularly around semiconductors. So I think this is going to be a win for the president. And I think when he comes home, I think he will definitely want to sell it. Of course, we know Donald Trump's going to do that anyway.
Well, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. Right, get in touch with me this evening, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. I'll be looking at those in just a minute. It's still to come on The Late Show Live tonight. This migrant sex offender mistakenly released from prison was arrested after this manhunt, of course. But who is to blame? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here,
It's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Theory on how you might try to serve a third term is that you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House or the White House counsels or your legal position?
No, you'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not. It wouldn't be right.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. If you were listening on the radio, we're thinking about that here in the studio. It was President Donald Trump earlier today responding to questions of whether he'd run for a third term. And he said, it's too cute. What do you make of that, Thomas? What does he mean by it's too cute?
Well, it's interesting. So what they're proposing is that JD could run as president with Trump as his vice, win, and then step down, and then Trump would automatically become president for a third term. So that's the proposal that they're saying. But he's saying it's too cute. I think in an Americanism, it sort of means that it's too silly. It's not the right way. It's not a proper thing.
It's not authentic to do.
But it's an interesting proposal.
All right, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later as well. But first of all, an independent investigation has been launched after a convicted sex offender, I'm sure you're all very familiar with this story, was wrongly released from prison. The Justice Secretary is calling it human error, and this is, of course, Harish Kebutu, who was serving a sentence for assaulting a 14-year-old girl whilst being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping. The convicted sex offender was apprehended in Finsbury Park in North London yesterday morning. There was a manhunt for 2 days, and there were members of the public who alerted police officers to his whereabouts. So following the mistaken release, a member of staff at HMP Chelmsford has been suspended, quite rightly too, probably, whilst they look into it. But Justice Secretary David Lammy today blamed the Tories for 14 years of failure over the crisis in Britain's prisons. Here he is.
It was the choices that his party made through 14 years of chaos. They said that they were the government of security and safety. They oversaw rising violent crime and crumbling courts and crumbling prisons. Violence went up in our prisons. Self-harm went up in our prisons. Drug abuse went up in our prisons. And prison officer numbers were cut under his watch. And he comes here and has the brass neck to give the impression that this started just 14 months ago.
I mean, you can't really argue with that. A lot of what David Lammy says there is right, of course. But let's talk to Mike Rolfe, General Secretary of the Criminal Justice Workers Union, about this and whose fault it might be. Mike, isn't this just the problem that the public gets so frustrated with these debates? Because, yeah, Lammy's right on a lot of that stuff. They massively dropped the ball, the Tories, when it came to law and order and justice and prisons and welfare, etc., with our prisoners. But on this occasion, with this bloke being accidentally released, that's one person's mistake, isn't it? Typing something wrong into a computer and letting him go.
I don't think it's that simple. I think we need to wait for the inquiry to absolutely understand what went wrong. But I don't think blaming the previous Conservative government is the full truth either. I think Labour have been really slow to react since they've taken power. They did inherit a few issues, there's no denying that. I'm sure the Conservatives would admit that themselves in terms of prison capacity and other issues that are going on in the estate. But certainly all we've seen from Labour since they've come into power is just making rash decisions around sentencing, releasing prisoners early and bringing new schemes in to try and reduce the prison population. And that really does also focus in on foreign national, which is where this case becomes particularly complex, in that Labour have moved the goalposts quite a few times since they've come into power around at what point a foreign national prisoner is entitled for his early release, which is before his sentence would actually come to a conditional release. And they've tampered with that, and that's made the situation really confusing. This is a service that's had a lack of investment. There's been no technology for the sentence calculations. They're still being done manually on a piece of paper by basic grade admin staff. This is a service that has absolutely not being looked at. It's crises like this that then make people react. But what the reaction here, what has happened is they've just thrown in another tier, another layer of bureaucracy that doesn't really actually solve the problem. It's not really looking at the issue in the backroom staffing numbers, why people don't want to work in prisons anymore, why, that pride in the service is falling apart. And actually, it is becoming embarrassing. And that's really sad to see for a lot of prison staff that have worked in the service for most of their career, and really put a hard shift in, want to protect the public, really care about how this impacts the public. This is embarrassing to them as well. They don't want to see this happen. They don't want to see their colleagues make mistakes. But the government have created an environment that allows for these mistakes to happen by just making it impossible to do the job they're doing.
But when you say it's impossible to do the job they're doing, surely somebody can just quite simply complete the paperwork so that Kabatu that we're looking at on the screen here, rather than being released, wasn't he meant to be being moved from the prison to start the deportation? Sorry, from his prison to start the deportation process, and he accidentally got released. Is that what was happening? So is this therefore two departments working together, and the left hand isn't talking to the right hand?
Well, it's even more complex than that, Bev. You've got the Home Office as well that comes into this. So prisoners that are in a remand prison like H&P Chelmsford, a lot of those prisoners will be on normal determinate sentences. There'll be the remand prisoners that are going to court whilst their court appearances take place. And then on top of that, you've got detainees, people who've finished their sentence with a foreign national that are waiting deportation. But you've also got your prisoners that come to end of sentence. Now, if the Home Office, for example, hadn't issued the paperwork to say that this guy needed to remain in detention and the prison hadn't received that, the prison may have looked for that and said, well, we've not received this. We're under, we're at risk of holding this guy illegally. His time has expired. We are due to release him. And it could be a simple error in that the paperwork never came from the Home Office. For example, the Home Office are meant to give the prison 30 days notification of anyone that's to remain on detention following the conditional release date. But quite regularly, because the Home Office is such a shambles as well, what's happening is the paperwork isn't coming through on time, and it's sometimes not coming through to the day of release. Now, how can anyone in that environment operate efficiently and, have effective communication in order not to make these mistakes?
I'm going to ask you a really stupid question now, Mike, off the back of the couple of stupid questions I've already asked you. But is there any sense in which Kabatu should have himself said to the bloke doing his paperwork, you've got this wrong, I shouldn't be going free? I could feel my panel laughing beside me. But wouldn't that have been the decent thing for him to do, to go, no, I'm not allowed to go out, I'm meant to be being deported, you've ticked the wrong box there, mate. Like, isn't there not some responsibility on him as well?
I mean, it looks like a complete mess. I mean, obviously, listening to some of the news headlines about him trying to re-enter the prison, it really does seem like the prison thought that he was to be released. And I don't know why that person or how that came to that. That's got to come out in the inquiry. It actually sounds like perhaps he did try and do that a little bit, which makes the whole situation that much worse, just listening to some of the news headlines. But I guess the prison, if they thought they were genuinely needed to release him, I've worked in prisons for over 20 years. I've known prisoners that don't want to leave. They are conditioned. They want to stay in prison. They've got a roof over their head. They're getting 3 meals a day. They don't want to leave prison, some people. So sometimes you do actually have to force people out the gate and say, sorry, you're released. Off you go. And perhaps that's kind of the scenario that you're kind of hearing from this driver that's turned up at the gate, and he said the guy was asking where he needed to go. No, it almost sounds like one of those situations. This guy didn't know what he was doing, but the prison felt that they had to release him. They forced him out of the gate. He's not really known what he's doing. And, it's turned into this massive public embarrassment. But, going back to my earlier point, this is because of the confusing situation the government's left prisons in. No one really has a clear strategic direction of where the prison needs to go. our core function should be to lock people up, but sentencing's been played with time and time again. You know, we sentenced prisoners to 4 years, but they were serving 50% of it, now they're serving 40% of it. Looks under the new sentencing guidance, that's going to be 30%. Then you throw into the mix of that all these early release schemes and facilitated release schemes that they offer to foreign national prisoners to deport them early. That comes before their conditional release date. All of this gets thrown into the mix with admin grade staff who are paid at the lowest level, who are sitting there recalculating, and it's not just one prisoner they need to recalculate for. When they make these decisions around changing the position in terms of sentencing, you've got a small admin team in a prison like Chelmsford that are recalculating every single prisoner's sentence calculations for the entire prison, 600-700 prisoners. And, that is quite a big piece of work, and mistakes are going to happen when you're doing that on a manual piece of paper.
Yeah, do you think this is happening more often, Mike? Because we know about this guy because it was such a significant case. It was this case that gave rise to the protests outside Epping to get rid of the illegal migrants in that hotel, which went to court, which then got pushed back. This has been such a big story. We only know about it because it was such a big. This case was so big before the guy was let out. How often do you think this is happening without us knowing?
There are releases in error quite regularly, and I think some statistics have been produced as a result of this incident that are showing. They increased to over 200 in the last 12 months. That's a significant number of prisoners that are being released in error. There's a lack of training for staff. I'll be totally blunt with you. They're so desperate to get new recruits in. Staff are always moving on. We promote people really quickly in the prison service now. People are, bumped up through the ranks very quickly with no real training other than their initial prison officer training. So someone can become a custodial manager, and that's what I understand in this instance. That's the person who is suspended, who's the first line of manager, who does the releasing at the gate. That person could have been new in service. They probably never received any official training to look at licensing and sign paperwork. They probably just learnt off one of their colleagues. That's the real risk that we're running in the service by not training people properly and offering that supervision and natural progression through part experience, because that is really key, learning off of other people that have the experience and knowledge, but also having some official training there so that they make sure they don't make these mistakes in the first place.
OK, thank you, Mike. Fascinating. Mike Rolfe there, General Secretary of the Criminal Justice Workers Union. Eric Cam, let me bring you into this. I just want to say I'm so embarrassed as a Brit that you sit there as American listening to what a shambles our prison service is. Is it different here, do you think? Can you believe that a country like Britain is letting that many potentially people go every year mistakenly from the prison service?
Oh, this is not just, I think, a problem that is relegated to the UK. We have that very same problem happening here. In fact, it was back in May where we saw 10 prisoners escape in Louisiana. That was a huge embarrassment. And it was only just a few weeks ago that the 10th prisoner who escaped was actually apprehended again. So this is something that I think plagues countries all across the world. I think David Lammy's point, while that certainly is a macro issue, I think it was I think there's a bit of egg on the face of someone, and I think they really do need to get to the bottom of it. I think he was protesting perhaps a little too much.
When you start to hear, Thomas, about people escaping from prison or kind of being, I sort of see them digging holes, like tunnels under the ground, or, going on the bottom of the truck like that kid did that got from Wandsworth Prison, the chef. It's appalling that in a 21st century justice system, we are letting people out, because the bit that blows my mind is the victims of apparently the victim, the 14-year-old victim of Hadush Kabutu, the sex offender, the family weren't even told that he'd been released.
Right, yeah, you should probably saw it on the news. But as you said, it was probably the worst case that this could have happened to for the British government. Like, that was the case that had the Epping riots, that, and I love the fact that every single person that, maybe said, shouted at a police dog at the riots or whatever, they were rounded up in hours, but this guy, it took them a long time to go and find him. It just shows you. Now, now. Lammy's saying he's going to be deported this week. It's like, oh, all of a sudden now we can start deporting people quickly. But I love the fact that this guy just sort of wandered around. I'm like, hello, if you've just been accidentally released, like, you know, at least try and flee. Like, come on, let's make it a bit of a prison escape. Can't he try and get to France or something at least? But he just sort of wandered around Chelmsford for a little bit.
It's genuinely the kind of story that would make the conspiracy theorists say, how come that guy, like, in terms of whipping up public fury. Let's see what you've been saying at home. Paula said Lammy defects everything back to the Tories. I suppose he's half right. He should have been. We should have had more prisons years ago. MC said apparently he tried to stay 5 times. Kebatu. Imagine saying no. I need to be here, and they still made him go. When released early, says Paul, don't you have a tag fitted and dress in your own clothes? And Michelle said he did. She's correcting me as well. Thank you, Michelle. He tried to stay 5 times, apparently. He was told to go to the train station. I'm fed up of Labour blaming the Tories for everything. We know that's why they lost the election. They are in office now, and the buck stops with them. Keep your messages coming this evening, gbnews.com/your say. And still to come tonight on The Late Show Live. We're going to have a look at tomorrow's front pages, including the Daily Telegraph reporting a headache for the palace as King Charles is heckled over Prince Andrew. We'll show you the clip. It wasn't good. Only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say. Because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I believe we're going to take some live pictures now of Donald Trump in Japan, meeting the newly elected Prime Minister there, Sanai Takachai. We can bring you these pictures. There they are. We've heard she's the first female Prime Minister of Japan. We expect them to get along extremely well. One of her inspirations was the late Margaret Thatcher. She's from officially the Liberal Democrat Party in Japan, although she's described as ultra conservative. She said that she wants to focus on rising consumer prices now that she's in office. They've got this problem with population shrinkage and ageing of the population in Japan. They've got labour shortages because of that, which could affect their production. And here we are. If you are listening on the radio, they're in a very beautiful room. It looks rather like the Oval Office, that, Thomas.
It does, lots of gold.
Yep, white on the walls and gold decoration, bright red curtains. All the dignitaries lined up as they come into the room. I don't know exactly where this is. I will find out for you in just a moment. So they are in Tokyo. I presume, Eric, do we think this is the Prime Ministerial building of Tokyo?
Yes, and one has to wonder, are the F-150s directly outside or are they somewhere else?
So if you weren't watching earlier, that is reference to the American Ford F-150 pickup trucks, which apparently are going to form a central piece of the negotiations that will be going on bilaterally in Japan between the President and the Prime Minister, Sanai Takachai. Now, the time difference, it's early in the morning there, isn't it, as we're watching this here. It's 20 to 1 for you in the UK. It's actually 20 to 9 here in America. The clocks have changed in the UK. The clocks have not changed here in America, just to make it a little bit more confusing. There's only 4 hours between the UK and Washington, DC as of tonight. It's normally 5. So we're seeing them entering into the room here. They're about to take onto a dais, and we'll hopefully hear a few words from Sanai Takachai, and no doubt we will hear more than a few words from President Donald Trump. He loves these occasions, doesn't he, Thomas? I mean, regardless of who he's meeting, he absolutely loves the performance element.
And they're very smart. They seem to have picked the goldest room they could find in Japan, and he will be loving this. He'll be very, very happy with this presentation. So, the anthem.
Yeah, he's saluting as they play the national anthem.
Well, that's why he loved Shinzo Abe so much. Abe was seen as the only world leader who was able to get it right in terms of actually showering him with so much attention and affection, and he just never forgot it. In fact, they say that it was Keir Starmer who actually tried to emulate Abe during his first meeting. Unfortunately, he didn't get it as close to the mark as what Abe did. And we see he still talks about Abe with tremendous affection and affinity.
We did do very well at the state visit, though. Keir Starmer may not have got the pomp and ceremony quite right when he met Donald Trump, but we aced it for the state visit.
And you know, and I went to the America 250 celebration here where they had the army lined up, and it does remind you of how good the Brits are at marching. I saw the American army, I was like, they're not as good as the British marching. The marching, they can invade a country better than us, but they can't march like us.
Yeah, Japan's pretty good, yeah. So we're just watching these pictures live here. This is, of course, a significant part of Trump's Asia tour. He's been on and off Air Force One in the last week. He's been to Malaysia, securing the deals with China is absolutely important. Such an important relationship, America, obviously, and China, never more so than at the time at the moment. This alliance is strengthened, I think it's fair to say, Eric, with Asia and America, and it's important.
But I think where this is going to get tricky is earlier in the year, the president was not so keen on perhaps coming to Taiwan's aid. And that's something that Biden certainly made a huge point of. And we already have heard from Takachai that securing Taiwan is something that Japan would be willing to do. We know that now, for the first time since World War II, Japan is actually now building offensive weapons in their military. And it will be interesting to see what the president will have to say, if anything, about what that means for the United States.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wait until the president starts to talk. We'll be watching these pictures for you. The Japanese national anthem now. You know the words, gentlemen.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see. I wonder how. I don't know what the Japanese public think of the president. But I mean, she just won a week ago, and now this is the images. I wonder if it's playing well for her, or is it not too good? I don't know. But it's pretty powerful for her on the world stage.
A fantastic start to a premiership.
Right.
I think we can say excellent timing for her. And apparently there was very little made of the fact that she's the first female Prime Minister. It was almost not talked about apparently in her campaign, and it was sort of like a post-woke.
She's really, have you seen her sports car? She's really cool. She drives like an old Toyota like sports car. She's really cool. Like,
not anymore. She's not going to be.
No, not anymore.
She's going to be behind the wheel of a Ford 150.
But yeah, she's cool. She like races cars and things. She's an interesting character. I think she has a motorbike.
She's
as well.
into motorcycles as well, isn't she? She's in her early 60s.
Yeah.
Apparently, she looks great. She looks younger than that. Just leading the way there, letting President Trump go slightly ahead of her. Oh, she's telling him, come on, this way. Off we go.
He loves this stuff.
He really does.
He would have stood there all day. He's waiting to just play YMCA.
He's great. I mean, I think he's wonderful in these circumstances because you can see the amount that he's enjoying these occasions.
And respect. He has such respect.
And respect, actually. You know, I know that he gets criticised for being so braggadocious and talking in superlatives. But when he's quietly taking in these occasions, he's nothing but reverence, is he, for the whichever country he's in. Oh, here we go. She's taking him round the wrong way. Yeah, here we go. She's saying, come over this way.
All the power. So Scott is there, and he's doing all of he's the Treasury Secretary.
So we've got Scott Bessent there on the left, and Marco Rubio, and Monica Crowley. The usual team that he takes with him when he flies around the world. A moment of silence there as the national anthems draw to a close. And he hosts, you know, Donald Trump hosts people in the White House almost every day, it feels like, when you're here.
In the Rose Garden Club.
In the Rose Garden, and he will be in his controversial ballroom in months to come, I'm sure. And I wonder how much he enjoys actually being hosted for once on these occasions.
I think he loves this. I mean, you wonder how he can keep the schedule that he does in terms of all the travel that we've seen just over the last 2 weeks alone.
Yeah.
But I think this is something that really energizes him.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we will have a quick look, I think, at the newspaper front pages now. Unless they're about to start talking. Yeah. We'll bring you the talk. When he starts talking, we'll bring you that. Let's have a look at what's going on the front page of the papers in the UK this morning. The Telegraph are saying NHS are going to be offering same-day prostate cancer testing, and they're reporting a headache for the palace as King Charles was heckled over Andrew. We'll show you that footage in just a moment. The Independent is telling us that Rachel Reeves is being warned against a budget mansion tax. They are coming after your assets, ladies and gentlemen. It's no longer your earnings. They're going to be coming after whatever it is you've already worked hard to own, and this particular tax on houses is going to be incredibly controversial. The newspaper, bigger tax hikes and spending cuts on the way in the crunch budget. This is again warming you all up for the fact that they're going to start taking money off you again when you've already earned your money, you've paid your tax, you've bought your houses, you maybe worked very hard to buy those houses. Now they're going to want a cut of your house as well. The Guardian are leading on ministers warning not to scapegoat the prison staff over the sex offence case. We just interviewed a gentleman about that, didn't we, just moments ago, who is representing the people who work within the prison force and the Prison Officers Association, and they're saying don't scapegoat him. This is a picture. Everybody seems to be on the same page here. Don't blame the individual, blame the system. Is that right, in your opinion? The New York Times are leading on Trump's China deal, averting a crisis of his own making. This is the Trump administration hailing a potential deal that may return the America-China relationship to where it was before President Trump began a trade war. And yep, that's it for now. The New York Times. Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Let's go to London and take the journalist and broadcaster Christo Fufas. Now, Christo, we were going to go to Donald Trump talking live, but instead we're talking to you live, my friend, and that is not a compromise. So it is Good to see you. We may have to interrupt you if the President does start talking. But what would you want to start with, Christo, over there in London?
Well, firstly, I'll take the Trump compliment, thank you. I want to talk about this front page of the Mail and various other papers that you just spoke about, the Independent as well, this absolutely repellent mansion tax idea. The Mail today is reporting on the fact that it is creating house price havoc at the moment because, of course, people aren't wanting to sell, or they're taking huge amounts off their asking prices in order to get them sold before this comes in. Of course, this is in the backdrop of today as well, or yesterday over here, the Renters' Rights Bill receiving royal assent as well, meaning loads of landlords are also trying to get out of the property market as well. So what little wealth people might have in their property is being eroded by their complete mismanagement of all of this. But secondly, I want to talk about the ideological aspect of this, because if anyone isn't aware, what is being mooted at the moment, and we'll know more when the budget happens, is that any property over £2 million here in the United Kingdom, that would then be taxed at 1%. So if you've got a property that's worth £3 million, that £1 million over the £2 million would be charged annually at a 1% tax, and you either pay that every year or it accumulates and you pay it to the state when you sell your property. What does that say about what Britain has become? One of the reasons that I think America is such a brilliant country is because if you say to anyone in America, I want to own a property that's $3 million, $4 million, they say to you, well done. They pat you on the back. They want you to succeed. Here in the UK, that kind of sentiment is dying because any kind of wealth or accumulation of wealth that you might get, and on money you've already paid tax on, the state want to get their sticky little fingers on it. And you might think £2 million above that is the kind of figure that won't affect you, but of course it will affect the wider property market. But also, when down the line will those thresholds change? Will it end up that a £1 million property ends up in that threshold? £500,000 property ends up in that threshold? Once the levers of tax are pulled, well then of course, when do those thresholds ever get better for anyone? So I think it's a really, really awful policy that penalises ambition and doing well for yourself.
You will own nothing and you will be happy, Christo Foufas. That's the problem, isn't it? We're being encouraged that we're going to be a rental generation, that nobody... Because if you think about those people who do own houses of worth more than £2 million, I mean, in London, that could be owned by a pensioner, an elderly person who maybe bought it many, many years ago when it was cheap. They may have had to draw down on their mortgage on several occasions in order to just live and meet their bills with that. And they're being asked to spend, as you say, it could be £10,000 a year just to hand it over to the government or be forced to move. I can't work out if it's deliberately cruel, or if it's just, is it just black and white, old-fashioned socialism wrought real in a way that is, as you say, we've seen throughout history that when extremely hard left governments operate in this way, people wake up in the morning and they go, well, what is the point? What is the point of going to work? I will just aspire to nothing. That's what I find so depressing.
And I think you're absolutely right. Tax is a balance between, of course, paying for services, but, of course, wanting people to, and this is where I ideologically believe, and I'm pretty sure you do as well, I believe that the government's job is to try and help you keep as much money as possible, because it's not the government's job to take your money, it's the government's job to be fiscally responsible. And if you take too much of people's money, not only does that mean that you're quite right, they think, well, what's the point in taking that extra shift because I'm going to be giving it to the government, but they also, the growth ends up going down the toilet, which is exactly what we're seeing here in the United Kingdom. Now, you ask, why is it? I think that it's envy. I think it's wealth that they see as unearned, but of course let's not forget there is inflation to factor in with why house prices have gone up. But also, this is as a result of failures of government. If you are lucky enough to have bought your property a few years ago and you've made some money out of it, firstly, I think fair play to you. But secondly, the reason that you perhaps have made a disproportionate amount of money is because of successive governments, Labour included, haven't built enough houses in order to make those house price rises a little steadier. And so you are then being penalised on an asset you've already paid tax on, an asset you already own, for failures of government. And I just think it goes against everything we should be encouraging people to do, and that is work hard, buy a property, and patting those people on the back for it.
Yeah. And save and invest. Let's bring my panel in as well, if we can here. Eric Ham, what's your assessment of this kind of policy, and how would it go down in America? I know particularly in Florida, Ron DeSantis, the governor Ron DeSantis, is talking about he said, I want to be in a world where you pay no tax. When you buy a house or you sell a tax, it's all between the salesman, the vendor and the buyer. What do you make of it, Eric?
That's interesting, because some red states are actually trying to get there. You have states like Florida, Texas that have no state income tax, and they actually tout that. And you actually see a lot of people leaving places like California, New York, moving to many of these red states. It's why you're seeing these massive swells, because people have, in some instances, been like what they say have been just taxed to death. And so they're trying to get away from that. And I think that's the fight, that's the tension that you're seeing play out right now between red and blue here in the United States.
Thomas, how many Brits do you think would be in favour of this? Because I also think, like, even if you're not a high earner, I don't think you begrudge it of people who've worked hard, because you still also think, well, one day it might be me.
Right, and you know, you talk about $2 million, pound, I should say, property. In London, that's almost a one-bedroom flat. You know, they think that these are big mansions. That's not much anymore with the current situation. But, you know, it makes me so sad to see how England is falling when we are living in the US during what Trump is calling the golden age. And it just shows you that they're stuck in the past. There are so many different ways for them to generate income for the government. For example, Trump recently, just this week, has done a deal with the Argentine government to buy their pesos and do a whole deal. They made $2 billion for the treasury overnight. And instead of being creative and thinking, how can we enter the new world and create new revenue streams, they're just doing the old-fashioned way of just tax. I am mind blown that the British people are paying as much tax as they pay and don't seem to mind. I really don't know where it ends. They're just taxing it to the end, you know.
And Christo, it's electoral suicide.
Well,
these policies, they aren't popular with anybody.
You say that. One of the issues that people who are pro-low tax and pro-growth have, I think, going forward, is that due to the failure of the Conservatives of the last 14 years, a lot of younger people will love this kind of policy because they are, of course, not on the housing ladder. They begrudge a lot of those people, not all young people, but a lot of those older people that have got this property wealth. And you don't create a nation of capitalists if they haven't got capital. And that's been a massive issue, I think, for the failure of the Conservatives to not help more people get on the property ladder, so that therefore they then have that mindset that this is something that they need to protect. What is also, I think, frustrating when it comes to the tax, and I agree with everything your panel has just said about this, is that, of course, this £10,000 that would go into the government's pocket, well, actually, that £10,000 might have been something that they would have spent on the high street, that they might have spent doing some repairs to the house. Now, what that means is the government still get their tax or their VAT, but what it means is it goes into the economy, it employs people, it creates growth. If you take all that money into the treasury, it doesn't end up back out there, the economy doesn't grow.
OK. Thank you so much, Christo. I do now have to say goodbye to you because Donald Trump is indeed talking in Japan. He's with the Prime Minister Sanai Takechai. Let's take some of this. Here it is.
安倍総理からよくトランプ大統領のダイナミックな外交について話を聞いていました。タイとカンボジアの停戦に成功し、トランプ大統領はまずアジアの平和に貢献をされました。それから先般の中東における合意の実現もですね、これはかつてない歴史的偉業です。
As a matter of fact, Prime Minister Abe often told me about your dynamic diplomacy. Most recently, Mr. President succeeded in securing a ceasefire deal between Thailand and Cambodia and contributed to ensuring peace in Asia. Also, the deal you have recently achieved in the Middle East is an unprecedented historic achievement.
これだけの短期間に世界はより平和になりました。でこの世界の平和と安定のトランプ大統領の揺るぎないコミットを高く評価します。で私自身も強い感銘を受けました。
In such a short period of time, the world started to enjoy more peace on the ground. And in this context, I highly value your unwavering commitment towards peace and stability. I, myself, was so impressed and inspired by you, Mr. President.
今や、日米は世界で最も偉大な同盟になりました。で日本も共に、世界の平和と繁栄に貢献をしてまいります。
Now both Japan and the United States have developed the greatest alliance in the world. And together with you, Japan is ready to contribute towards peace and stability.
私は日本の国益を守り抜くためにも強い日本外交を取り戻す決意です。そして自由で開かれたインド太平洋の進展に向けても日米でさらに協力を進めたいと考えています。
On diplomacy, I am determined to restore dynamic Japan's diplomacy to protect Japan's own national interest. In addition, I am ready to promote further collaboration with you and with the United States toward our shared goal of achieving a free and open Indo-Pacific.
で私はこれから日本の国力、つまり外交力、防衛力、経済力、技術力、情報力、人材力を強くするリーダーとして働いてまいる決意です。
So let me share with you my determination. I will continue to strive as the leader of Japan to strengthen Japan's national power, namely diplomacy, defense capabilities, economic power, technology, intelligence, and human resources.
来年は、米国建国250周年、ですよね。で、共に、日本も共に盛大にお祝いをしたいと思っております。ワシントン DC に250本の桜を、寄付する予定です。それからまた来年7月4日にはワシントン DC で日本の秋田県の花火が打ち上げられると聞いております。
Next year, the United States will mark the semi-quincentennial anniversary. Japan and I would like to join the United States to have a magnificent celebration. We will extend a gift of 250 cherry trees to Washington, D.C. In addition, I understand that fireworks from Japan, from Akita Prefecture, will be shown in Washington, D.C. on July 4th next year.
日本とアメリカを、より強く豊かにするために、日米同盟の新たな黄金時代をトランプ大統領とともに作り上げていきたいと願っております。ありがとう。
Through these efforts, together with you, Mr. President, I would like to realize a new golden age of Japan-U.S. alliance where both Japan and the United States will become stronger and also more prosperous. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you very much, and I want to congratulate you. As you know, Shinzo Abe was a great friend of mine, and I was very saddened to see what happened. It was so shocking, but he spoke so well of you, even before we knew what was going to happen and your ascension. He spoke so well of you long before we met, and I'm not surprised to see that you are now the Prime Minister. And he would be very happy to know that, and I congratulate you on behalf of the United States of America.
総理ありがとうございます。まずご着任の、に対して、祝したいと思います。晋三は私にとって非常に素晴らしい友人でありました。本当に、彼が亡くなったことはショッキングであり、悲しい出来事でありました。また、安倍晋三氏からは、かなり総理のことをよく話されておられました。ですので、お会いする前から、総理になるということを私が知る前から素晴らしい話をよく聞いております。ですので、晋三氏も もかなり喜んでいらっしゃると思いますし、米側を代表して私の方からも祝したいと思います。
I know that you are increasing your military capacity very substantially, and we've received your orders for a very large amount of new military equipment, and you know that we make the best military equipment in the world, the jets, the missiles, and everything else, and hopefully we don't have to use them very much, if at all. But we appreciate that order, and we very much appreciate the trade. We're going to do tremendous trade together, I think more than ever before. We're just signing a new deal, and it's a very fair deal, and we look forward to welcoming Japan into the United States and a continuation, and it's something that everybody is very, very excited about.
でまた、日本の方も、かなり自衛隊や防衛費に関して、増加をされるということで、聞いております。このほか米国から装備品の調達をされるということで、もちろん米国はベストな、戦闘機、ミサイル等を持っております。
So if you're listening on the radio, and also if you're watching at home and your Japanese isn't perfect, let's just have a little chat over some of the Japanese. We're watching and listening to Donald Trump sit in negotiations with the new Prime Minister of Japan. Very new. She's only been in the seat for a week, Takashai, and they are talking about what she's described as what will be a golden age of relationship. Let's listen in.
Say that this will be a relationship that will be stronger than ever before, and I look forward to working with you. And on behalf of our country, I want to just let you know, anytime you have any question, any doubt, anything you want, any favors you need, anything I can do to help Japan, we will be there. We are an ally at the strongest level, and it's a great honor to be with you, especially so early in what will be, I think, one of the greatest prime ministers. I think you will be one of the great, everything I know from Shinzo and others, you will be one of the great prime ministers. I'd also like to congratulate you on being the first woman prime minister. That's a big deal. That's a big deal, and I want to congratulate you on that. I think that has to be called out. And you're going to do a fantastic job, and we're going to have a fantastic relationship. Thank you very much.
私は日本を愛してますし、非常に日本という国を尊敬しております。私たちの関係はこれから。
In that, we've heard Donald Trump recognise the fact that she's the first female prime minister. In the background there, the gentleman to Trump's left is Howard Lutnick, Secretary of State, and Howard Lutnick has played a big part in a lot of the recent international negotiations, hasn't he?
Yeah. So Howard is Commerce, and then Rubio is Secretary of State. They're next to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they have, and Howard he's a powerful guy. He's a billionaire himself. So, he's got a powerful team at the table, but the relationship with Japan is already pretty strong. But it's interesting to see Trump doing the old world of diplomacy, which makes me sad. Remember the days when Britain used to sit at a table like this and the Prime Minister was respected, and now you would never see Keir at a table like this, so it's a sad time, but...
And in fact, Eric, it's interesting that, as I said, the fact that she is a woman didn't really play a part in her campaign. It's barely been mentioned. It's Donald Trump who just went woke and drew attention to it.
Oh, I don't think Donald Trump will want to hear you use that word when mentioning his name. But also, I think it's important to note that because many thought that she would appoint more women. She's only appointed 2 women in her cabinet, and so there is this thinking that there would have been more, or that she would have been even more woke.
Yeah,
but she wasn't.
She does love her.
Let's talk now to Timothy Langley, who's the CEO and Representative Director of Langley Esquire, the longest-standing government relations and public affairs consultancy in Tokyo, Japan. Good evening to you, Timothy. So, what's the significance of the meeting we've just seen? She's only been in office for a week, but clearly a huge amount of respect and almost affection between them. She had a bit of a sort of twinkle in her eye, didn't she, when she was chatting to him across the table?
She sure did, and I think, like your viewers can tell, there is something texturally different in this meeting. You can see the warmth and the affinity between Donald Trump and the new Prime Minister. She is the 104th Prime Minister of Japan, the first woman. It is of remarkable notoriety that she is, and at this particular point in time, I think that this is the epoch of a huge relationship change between the United States and Japan.
Will that have benefits, tangible benefits for the American people? What will they see here? What will you see here that will be beneficial to them?
There are a couple of things that we can anticipate. First of all, with Donald Trump and America First, he is withdrawing a little bit and relying on the allies to shoulder a little bit more of their burden. And from the Japanese, they have been restricted somewhat from building a huge defense industry complex because their constitution restricts them from having offensive weaponry, offensive weapons to sail or to host on their country. And so that's why the United States provides that. And the constitutional revision movement is probably going to begin to take a little bit more of a momentum leap now with these two conservative parties hosting their countries. And I think you're going to see a vast change in the amount of dependence that the Japanese have on the United States, and therefore the United States can focus on things that are more domestically related.
And are we getting the pronunciation of Sanai Takaichi's name correct?
A little bit. So many people, there are a couple of pronunciations, the way the kanji is written for the last name. Her name is Takaichi. It's Takaichi. It's not Takaichi, it's Takaichi. So you pronounce your name Takaichi. And I also understood Mr. Trump slightly mispronouncing Mr. Abe's last name. On the plane coming over, he talked about Mr. Abe, and it's Mr. Abe, as we all know.
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad you've clarified that for us. So what are the challenges that Japan faces at the moment as a country, and how might Donald Trump help?
There is so much geopolitical maneuvering going on here. The Russians in the northern territories, the four islands that the Soviet Union took over, after the bombs had dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Russians invaded Japan, they broke a treaty, and they still occupy those four islands. Just this last week, they have prevented safe passage of Japanese fishing ships and commercial vessels from approaching those four islands, which are under dispute. So there's that. In the southern area, you've got Okinawa, which is hosting most of the U.S. forces, the battleships, the troops, the airplanes, the surveillance, that sort of thing. And that is very close to what's going on in Taiwan. But more importantly and more perhaps explosively are the Senkaku Islands, also disputed between Japan, Taiwan, China, the Philippines. And that also is being, the boundaries are being violated by China on almost a daily basis. And so there's a little bit of saber rattling that's going on there. The United States can prevent that by just bolstering the U.S. presidents, the flybys, the support there. But eventually Japan needs to take that over.
That's what the president wants.
I want to bring in my panel a bit then, Timothy, because we are also going to show a picture of the F-150 truck that we've been talking about, which apparently is going to play a big part in these negotiations that are going on in Japan. But Eric, what were you just saying then about Japan and China and that? Because always there's a lot more going on, as Timothy said then, geopolitically here today.
Yeah, that's right. And because of the relationship between the United States and Japan, and as we see there how Donald Trump spoke so glowingly of the new prime minister, he's looking to Japan to actually be a bulwark for China, especially in that region where we know China is becoming increasingly more bellicose. And now that Japan is actually moving on a more offensive footing militarily, I think that's going to be a massive, massive game changer in the region, especially how close and how tight the United States is with Japan.
Timothy, that's an accurate assessment.
Yes, you're so right, Eric, to point that out. This meeting in South Korea, so everybody went to Malaysia, they came to Japan. I mean, President Trump has almost, the core elements of his cabinet with him. He's got defense secretary, he's got commerce, he's got treasury here with him now. They're here in Tokyo for 3 days. They leave tomorrow for South Korea for the APEC leadership meeting, and potentially a leadership meeting between President Trump and President Xi. That could be a real keystone move for China, Japan, and the United States. We're very much looking forward to that. But yes, the United States needs to rely a little bit more on Japan for hoisting that kind of defensive parameter, and Japan having these alliances with all of the like-minded countries, sharing troops, sharing techniques, melding their technologies together. And about the trucks, the F-150 trucks, I used to be the general counsel for General Motors in Asia Pacific, based in Tokyo, and selling Japanese, the trucks and the vehicles from the GM is a very difficult. Eventually, GM just gave up and went and started doing their business in China instead. Their footprint here is very, very small compared to what it was when I was working there in the 90s. But the trucks that they're importing are going to be used. It's not, I don't think, for sale to the general public, but I think municipalities and the self-defense forces will purchase these. It's just a benefit that just to court the president's good favor. I think it's not a massive shift in trade policy. I don't.
Yeah, and just finally, just tell us a little bit about Takaichi. No, sorry, I've got it wrong again. Remind me. Let me write it down phonetically. Go. Takaichi. So just Takaichi. Who is she? Who is she? What do we know about her?
So she is really pretty fantastic. She was a congressional aide in her earlier years before she became a Diet member. So she was a congressional aide in the United States. I was also a congressional aide to the Diet. I went to Japanese law school, and I was picked up by a member of the parliament to be his aide. So we have some affinity, some similarity there. She's married to another member of the lower house. He has some disabilities, and so there's a little bit of home care that's involved in that. But he's been in the press recently. I'm going to support my wife. Of course, he would say that. But she is also, she speaks English. I don't know why. I guess it was just for the consumption of the Japanese population, that this meeting that is only 1,000 yards from my office here in Lokobancho, the meeting that they're having right now, she speaks English. She can handle herself in a conversation, and I think that will bear her great fruit, particularly with the president, but also with international leaders in ASEAN, in APEC, and in her role. 7 days, she's been in office for 7 days, and of those 7 days, 4 of them have been spent overseas. So she's really got her work cut out for her. She is a tough cookie.
And just lastly, Timothy, I don't know about you, and I think it's partly to do with Instagram, but I am noticing that Japan is becoming rather popular with British tourists. More than ever before, it's becoming a destination that people want to go to. Why, Timothy? Sell it to us.
You cannot throw a stone in Tokyo and not hit a foreigner. It's not just the British, it's the Americans, it's the Chinese typically had the lion's share, almost 50% of the tourists coming in. That's diminished a little bit. The Chinese have put restrictions on tourists coming to Japan because of this tit-tat that we're experiencing here. But the level of foreigners coming in, the food is good, the safety, the streets are clean. It's like a Disneyland for adults. People come here and they see how people interact with each other, the flow of foot traffic, how orderly it is, no graffiti, how polite people are, and no matter where you go, whether it's Tokyo or Osaka or Kyoto, the food is invariably delicious, well prepared, well presented, and inexpensive, and it's drawing people by the droves.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Tim. Timothy Langley there from Langley Esquire, the longest-standing government relations and public affairs consultancy in Tokyo in Japan. Do you fancy going, fellas? I'd love to go to Japan.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard nothing but good things about it. In fact, I had a friend who was just there skiing, and she said to me, why is it that we have not heard about this before? I also have a relative that's actually stationed over there, and he also raves about it as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. Safe, clean? It sounds like Washington, D.C., doesn't it, Thomas?
It's a long way, and now we're even further away now, being over in the US. So, no, I'd like to go. But on that, you raised a good point about the army. Not a lot of people know there's 55,000 American troops in Japan. That is half the British Army based in Japan. So there's a lot of connections between the two countries over here.
Well, let's move to another story now, because there's nothing really more depressing than comparing our own Chancellor of the Exchequer and her economic take with what's happening here in America. But it was another bad headline for Rachel Reeves. She's confirmed tax rises and spending cuts are options ahead of the budget in just a couple of weeks' time. The Chancellor is in Saudi Arabia today. She's focusing on economic growth, she tells us, aiming to make progress on a trade deal with the Gulf Cooperation Council in Riyadh. The question, though, will the Chancellor be successful? What does it mean for Britain? Meanwhile, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has avoided a full-scale trade war after securing a framework deal with China. Let's get the take of Jill Homan, Deputy Director of Trade and Economic Policy at the America First Policy Institute. Jill, great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Is Donald Trump doing a great job here in America compared to the UK, or does it just sometimes feel like that?
Thanks for having me, and great to be with you. And while I was waiting, I actually just bought my ticket to Tokyo, so I'm ready to go. But good to be with you. The president is personally leading this trade mission, and so he's signaling that trade is not just a technical negotiation, but it's a strategic priority. And in short order, he's secured 4 trade deals, so 2 trade deals, one with Malaysia, one with Cambodia, and a framework with Thailand and Vietnam. And it seems to be just success after success, and I'm quite optimistic that this trip will yield much progress in a trade relationship with Japan and also South Korea and potentially China. And so we have a focus that the president has in really changing the direction of our trade relationship from being an economy built on consumption to one on production, which is good for American workers, farmers, ranchers, and American businesses.
And how do you see the British economy doing? We are over our heads with a very socialist government now, and every month that goes by, we're seeing more and more clearly the direction of travel. We're understanding their ideology in terms of high tax, going after not just income but assets. That's going to hurt a lot of British people who've always, we've been told, work hard, aspire, accumulate, save, don't rely on the state, and suddenly we feel like we've done a full 180 on that ethos, and I think it's terrifying a lot of people.
You're exactly right, and I even think the conversation before about housing and being able to afford housing and not taxing housing as much is, when you tax investment, you get less of it. And so I think that's a very different approach that's happening in the United States that Trump is doing compared to what is happening overseas. And what you're seeing in the focus that this administration has, which is he's incorporating tariffs, so reciprocity, into these deals, in addition to including investment into our country. And so these trade deals include tariffs, foreign investment, as well as reducing non-tariff barriers, which really expands our export market, in addition to reshoring jobs and broadening the economic base. And when you take a different approach, which you all may be experiencing, which is taxing your domestic investment, you're really going to constrain that domestic investment, and it's really going to have difficulty with economic growth, in spite of what the recent headline is with attempts at trade relationships in Dubai and overseas.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Really interesting. Jill Homan there, Deputy Director of Trade and Economic Policy at the America First Institute. Thomas, I mean, I don't want to sort of talk about what we've talked about already, but I don't think we can really do this enough. Like the difference between the America First ethos, allow you to keep more of your money, spend it as you want, and what we're seeing in the UK with impending tax rises, going after houses. How long do we have in the UK?
Well, that is the question.
How long do we have? Because there's also this sense as well that we have an impending crash. This, we cannot possibly pay back even the interest on what we owe.
And they're just taxing, and now it's the mansion tax. And make no mistake, what comes next after a mansion tax is an exit tax. And this is if you want to leave the country. If you're a billionaire in England, there aren't that many left, but if you are, or a multimillionaire, and you want to leave and move to Monaco, or even to France or anything, it's an exit tax. They have that in California here, which is probably one of the most socialist states in the US. If you are a California resident and you want to move to Texas, because what happened, all the rich people moving to Texas, they put an exit tax. So it's like, actually, you've got to pay, I think it's something like 20% of your income or whatever to leave the state. That'll come in the UK because they have to tax these people. They can't have all the billionaires leaving, because who are they going to tax? So that'll come, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these billionaires leaving.
Eric, is that a good idea, to tax a billionaire if they decide they want to leave your country?
Well, I think here in the United States, I think that's one of the central fights that we're seeing take place right now. There are many on the left who think billionaires are not taxed enough and that they need to be taxed more. And I think there's an argument to be made for that, and especially when you look at the gaping hole that we see right now where the government cannot provide subsidies for rising healthcare costs. As a result of the government shutdown, people will lose many of their benefits. And of course, you talk about debt right now. The United States has actually just passed the $38 trillion mark in terms of our debt. So trust me, if you guys are going to crash, we're going to just like implode. And I think
I love here they talk in trillions, you know.
I know. Well,
we talk billions, but it's trillions.
But I think we have about $6 trillion of debt, don't we? I mean, where do we go? Like, it's not sustainable. It will never be paid back. I mean, my biggest fear is we have this enormous crash. Literally, bank accounts are emptied, and Keir Starmer will turn around and go, "Well, I'm not going to take all your money off you, but it is going to be in a central banking digital currency tied to your digital ID. But in that case, we'll let you keep some of it." That's my worry.
Well, it's even the same here. You know, in the US, you have to file your taxes. In the UK, the tax is taken out of your account automatically, right? In the US, it's not. If you didn't want to pay any tax here, you can easily do it. In the UK, it just, you know, your paycheck, it gets sucked out straight away. So it's a very different system here.
Yep, lot to learn. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. We're going to break down the top stories from tomorrow's front pages, hot off the press. Remember, we've got no ad breaks in this hour as well. But up next, this.
Defendant's motion to appear in civilian clothing is granted.
The latest update from the Utah court after Charlie Kirk's suspected assassin attends a virtual pre-trial hearing. Hot off the press, this is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. So Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old suspected assassin accused of shooting Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk during a campus appearance at Utah Valley University, returned to court today for a virtual appearance. He spoke only briefly off camera. And we'll talk now to James Hamilton to tell us exactly what happened, former FBI special agent. Now, James, there was something of a victory for Tyler Robinson today, wasn't there? Just tell us what happened.
Just a pretrial hearing to see if he could appear in civilian clothing versus the orange jumpsuit. The judge granted that, but he did not go as far as to grant the removal of shackles or handcuffs or things of that nature.
So just to be clear on that, so ordinarily, what prisoners who've been arrested in a situation like this, when it seems fairly nailed on that he's guilty, we'll come on to that in a minute, they would have to appear in prison garb, and he has been given permission to appear in his own clothes. What would the benefit of that be for him?
Well, his counsel would feel as though it's prejudicial to a potential jury that he's sitting there in an orange jumpsuit, which might be indicative of, you know, an already convicted person. And the motion was just to be in civilian clothes so it wouldn't prejudice a jury, and the judge agreed and granted it.
And is that because it's such a high-profile case, James, do you think? Is it because even with the amount of footage that's been seen online, the fact that the media were coming out and saying this guy was guilty from, I mean, you know, within 24 hours of Charlie Kirk tragically losing his life, father of 2 young children, is this in some way an attempt to give him a fair trial against all of that background noise?
Yeah, I certainly think the judge took that into account, and, you know, this is a big deal, and it's potentially a death penalty case, and Utah uses the firing squad. So they're taking, you know, every precaution to make sure it's fair on both sides. And in our country, you know, they're still presumed innocent. And to me, it was an interesting decision, but wasn't, you know, groundbreaking.
Why was it interesting?
Because it went his way, and I think, you know, the judge could have easily said no, and he decided to go ahead and let the individual show up in civilian clothing, but remaining shackled would indicate, and he said it, that, you know, there's still a danger here to the people in the room. And so, you know, again, it's not anything where I was, you know, taken aback by it. I think it's all part of the process.
And do you feel, James, that there has been too much of an assumption, not only on social media, but we saw Kash Patel coming out straight away. We talked about, Donald Trump has talked about the fact that he wants a death penalty in this case. Has there been too much noise to presume that this guy is guilty?
Well, there's certainly a lot of interest, and there's a lot of evidence that if you read the newspaper accounts, there's certainly a lot of evidence here that they're still combing through. And again, that's why we go to trial, to see what happens, to see, to make sure everyone gets their fair day in court. But yeah, I don't read too much into any of that. It's right now it's following the process, and it's a good process.
There are issues with trust, James, as you know, largely actually thanks very much to social media, to the amount of footage that gets shared amongst people all around the world within seconds of Charlie Kirk dying. The very graphic footage of him losing his life was seen in phones, in jeans pockets all around the world, thousands of miles away. We are living in completely different times. And with that becomes a lot of armchair detectives, a lot of specialists, and there is so little faith, I would say, in the justice system when you are confronted with so much information. When you look at this case, are there anomalies which have been highlighted by people online, perhaps with YouTube channels, which don't seem to make any sense?
Well, not to me. I can see where people would go down that rabbit hole. They spend a lot of time with their devices, and they're not easily, but a lot of times they're influenced by what they're hearing, and they, like you said, they don't have a lot of trust, so they want to believe there's something more to it. But at the end of the day, that's why the evidence will be presented, and 12 jurors will decide. But there's an awful lot of noise, these high-profile cases, and you're right. There's going to have to be experts that'll testify that any type of camera footage, for instance, wasn't manipulated. All that stuff again is going to be tested. We just don't. It's not what it was 50 years ago, where someone could testify, a police officer or an FBI agent could testify, and they immediately believe them. I think you're right. There's a lot more skepticism and a lack of trust, and so they're going to have to prove their case, which they should have to do. Again, the penalty here is death, so it's very, very serious. But I hear the stories or the conspiracy things that you're intimating, but I don't get drawn into them.
No, I think that's wise. There's a lot of people that are being drawn into them, James Hamilton, I can tell you that. Let me bring in Thomas Corbett-Dillon and Eric Ham here. Thomas, there are people online saying, look, I don't know who did kill Charlie Kirk, but I know that it wasn't a bloke on a roof with a World War II gun which he managed to dismantle and put down his trousers. But that is up to the court, as James says, to ascertain the truth. But there are so many people who have no faith in that process now that it almost makes a mockery of the justice system.
Yeah, and I mean, finding 12 jurors that don't know much about this case is obviously going to be very hard. I think Candace Owens, who obviously is a good friend of Charlie, has been making some pretty interesting points online, particularly around the text messages that seemed very strange. I'm like, I don't know many, what is he, 21-year-old that texts like that? The whole thing is kind of strange, and we'll see what happens. But the fact that he didn't show his face in this hearing today, obviously he's got lawyers and they're telling him what to do and things, but he didn't show his face, so it's interesting to see what the strategy is behind all of this.
Eric, are you interested in this case, and what does it tell us about modern life and our relationship between justice and social media?
Well, I think there's still a lot that needs to be uncovered with this case. We have heard so much, and quite frankly, the narrative that is being driven has largely been by MAGA, particularly the Trump White House. And I think of course, we know that the defendant himself is certainly going to have his day in court. And I think it's going to be especially important for him to actually not only put on his case, but be able to sell it to the jury pool, because right now we're getting so much information, and I think that well of information could potentially impact, if not affect, what the jury will actually hear in terms of what is fact, what is fiction.
James, do we have a time scale for this case, and how soon we might have it concluded?
It's going to be a while. I was reading this morning that Utah indicated that it could be up to a year in some of these cases because of the volume of witness information, for instance, in this case, because there were thousands of people there. It's going to be a long time. I don't think this will be over quickly.
And throughout all of that time, you have Erica Kirk, the widow, you have Turning Point USA, who are having to even bat off accusations that there might have been people within Charlie's own team that may have had something to do with this. I mean, there is every theory under the sun is being applied to this. And how helpful are people like Candace Owens? And for people who may not be familiar, she has a YouTube channel. She does these very deep dives, these investigative assessments of various situations. A famous one looking into President Macron's wife and their particular identity. I like to live in a world, James, I can't lie, where we have other people who are happy to shine lights in corners that we may not always get to see. But I imagine it is troubling for people like the FBI and lawyers and judges and also potentially jurors to come up with the truth.
Yeah, it is. Again, this is very reminiscent of Butler in that, the quick movement of folks to think there's some big, far-reaching conspiracy. And it's so difficult, I think, for folks to get their head around, well, why couldn't it just be a kid gets on a roof with a rifle and takes a shot? Why is that so hard to believe? I mean, it's effective, first of all. And that weapon, though old, is very, very effective at doing what it's designed to do. And so, again, to me, there's nothing in this right now that would indicate to me that, oh, there's multiple people involved, some big conspiracy theory. I mean, I could be wrong, but right now I just don't see anything other than the narrative. A guy on a roof shot a guy, and we saw that when we saw the guy get shot, and we know that it came from an elevated position. So again, I'd have to see a lot more, but I was in the government for a long time and rarely do these types of big conspiracies. At least I never really saw much of that.
Okay, thank you so much. A former FBI Special Agent James Hamilton there. Interesting. Let me know your thoughts at home. gbnews.com/your say. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live, we're going to have a look at the front pages from tomorrow before they even hit the shelves. We will be discussing the things that you will be talking about at work tomorrow lunchtime or sitting around with your mates tomorrow. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, things are going to be a bit mixed through today. There will be quite a bit of sunshine on offer, but also some rain at times too. A bit of a murky, drizzly start across some southern counties, and whilst a lot of this rain is going to clear away, some far south-southwestern parts will stay quite grey, and there could be a bit more drizzly rain to push its way in. Otherwise, we're looking at sunny spells for many of us, but also quite a few showers, these mainly pushing their way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, some of them feeding into other areas too. Temperatures are going to be around or a little bit below average for some, especially towards the north, further south, nearer normal with highs of around 15, possibly even 16 Celsius. As we go into this evening, we're going to stick with the showery theme across western parts of Scotland in particular. Some of them could be quite heavy. Further east, a little bit cloudier across some parts of Aberdeenshire and towards the far northeast of Scotland, with a few bits of rain here as well. More showers to come through this evening across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty of showers feeding into northwest England and North Wales. Elsewhere across many parts of England and Wales, ending the day largely fine, albeit cloud and rain across the far southwest will push its way northeastwards as we go through the start of the night and becoming a bit more widespread as we go overnight as well. So central counties of England and Wales likely to be pretty cloudy and pretty wet through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Elsewhere, some clear spells here and there, yes, but also a fair few showers as well. For many, it's actually going to be a slightly chillier night than last night, more widely seeing temperatures dropping into single figures. Could get close to freezing in some sheltered spots of Scotland. As we go through tomorrow then, quite cloudy, wet at times across the southern third of the UK, more more rain pushing in from the west and southwest. Further north, similar to today really, so there will be some sunny spells around, but also quite a few showers. These heaviest, most frequent across western parts of Scotland. Again, a north-south split when it comes to temperatures, cooler in the north, relatively mild further south. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I am Bev Turner. Let's have a look at some of the newspaper front pages for tomorrow. The Daily Mail are leading on as Housing Secretary refused 4 times to rule out a socialist levy in the budget. There is the threat of a mansion tax sparking house market havoc. As if they couldn't get any less popular, and then they go and do that. The Times are leading on small boat migrants to be housed in barracks. Drive to end the use of hotels within a year. I'm pretty sure we've heard that before. The Mirror are leading on COVID families moan fury, £10 million slap in the face. This is Michelle Mone, who has bought a £10 million flat. Of course, she is the woman who was found guilty of having ripped off the British taxpayer during COVID. And the Express are leading with reform demanding that MPs take over the rape scandal inquiry, and one victim blasts the grooming gang probe as being rigged from the start. The Guardian. Ministers are warning not to scapegoat prison staff over the sex offence release case, the accidental release case, and the front page there. This is Hurricane Melissa, which is heading to Jamaica as we speak. They say that it will be the worst storm that Jamaica has ever seen. They are quite literally battening down the hatches, and that will probably be on your news feeds tomorrow. No doubt about it. There will be footage from Jamaica tomorrow, with fears that Hurricane Melissa could be, quote, catastrophic. The New York Times are saying that Trump's China deal has averted a crisis of his own making. The Trump administration hailing a potential deal that may return the US-China relationship to where it was before President Trump began a trade war. And the Washington Post, how Jack Smith's strongest case against Donald Trump collapsed. Who, Eric Ham, is Jack Smith?
Oh, Jack Smith is the special prosecutor who was assigned by former Attorney General Merrick Garland to prosecute Donald Trump.
For everything?
It was for
all of the
files.
No, it was for 2 cases. It was for absconding with national security documents, the same thing that President Biden and Mike Pence were both investigated for, as well as January 6th.
Yes. Okay. Right. Let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Let's bring in Christo Fufas from London now as well. Christo, what should we talk about? What do you want to go with from those front pages that we've just seen? What's tickling your fancy, Christo?
Let's start, I think, with The Guardian, which is never a sentence I really like to say, but I will today, because interesting that the Prison Officers Association today, and this is their main headline, saying that they are warning ministers not to scapegoat prison staff over this sex offender release. As you know, and as you were talking about in your last hour, Hadush Kabatu from HM Prison Chelmsford, this is the person who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old and indeed another woman as well. He was, of course, in the Bell Hotel in Epping. It created all of that unrest and those protests in Epping, and then was released early on Friday. He's now been recaptured. Prison Officers Association today saying, hang on, why have you suspended one member of staff over this? You can't blame the prison staff over this complete mess up, and this is basically Mark Fairhurst, National Chair of the Prison Officers Association, saying that a union member, a discharging manager, has been the only person to have been suspended, when actually there are 2 more senior staff members who were also involved in this complete mess made of this person. person. And you're absolutely right, by the way. Some of your members have been saying about how he did actually, and it's absolutely right, he did actually attempt to get back into the prison 4 or 5 times. Now, this was because a delivery driver outside, who was outside the prison for about an hour and a half, that's how long Habatu was outside prison himself, trying to get back into the prison. And actually, it was the officers involved who ended up directing him to the station and saying to him, look, go away, go and get on a train, get out of here. And he was repeatedly saying to them, I don't know what's happening, why are you releasing me? Now, that's what's being reported by this delivery driver. He even went up to the delivery driver and said, can you help me? Because I don't know what's going on. So it's a complete mess. I don't know who else you would blame other than the officers involved, but I think it's a fair point to say, look, you can't just go for the lowest rung on the ladder. If there were senior officers who were there on that day, you need to make sure that they are held to account too. And of course, if this was under the Conservatives, David Lammy, who, let's be honest, you know, he makes 2 short planks look intelligent, he would not have been calling, he would have been calling for a resignation of the Justice Minister, and probably would have been as outraged a Conservative Justice Minister laughing along in Parliament today, which is exactly what he was doing when he was questioned about this.
Can we talk about these small boat migrants to be housed in barracks, Christo? Because I've heard this before. Now, what happened last time when they were going to be housed in barracks and then it didn't work? This is one of these issues which we don't really have a parallel here in America, because they've either stopped illegal migrants or they've kicked them out. So they're not struggling with this issue in quite the same way. But what's the detail of this headline?
Well, yes, you're quite right. This is the Times headline today here in the UK. Small boat migrants will be housed in 2 army barracks in Scotland and in the south of England from next month. This is Sir Keir Starmer piling pressure, saying that 900 migrants will be housed under these plans to use Cameron Barracks in Inverness and Crowborough Army Training Camp in East Sussex. This is according to Home Office sources. They will start being housed in this accommodation by the end of next month. Now, what's interesting about this story is, as you just heard, there is actually a time frame involved here, because they're saying it will be done by the end of next month, and the Home Office is hoping to house on more military sites as it works with the Ministry of Defence to find several other disused sites. Now, I don't think anyone would object to this. I think it's a good idea if it actually happens. But you're quite right. We've heard this countless times before, and also, let's not forget the BB Stockholm. Remember that, where we were told that that was going to be where people were housed, and of course then we ended up with an outbreak, I think, of E. coli on that, and of course then we ended up with that no longer being used. So the devil will be in the detail, and of course what isn't being reported, but something that it comes up when this story is spoken about before, is how much it would actually cost to convert some of these barracks to make them suitable for this sort of housing. So great if it happens, but you're right to be cynical, because we've heard this so many times before.
And just solve the problem. Right, listen, let's keep you all here now. Obviously, Eric and Thomas are still with me. I want to talk about American president, former President Joe Biden, because he's made his first public appearance since undergoing radiation therapy. Apparently he's got quite an aggressive form of prostate cancer now, and he addressed an audience in Boston. He won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, and here he is in fine fettle.
In over 50 years in elected public life, this is the worst I've seen it. It's time to get re-engaged. It's time to act, to fight like hell. This is no time to give up. It's time to get up. Get up now, get up.
It's not time to give up, it's time to get up. I mean, he's looking very feisty there, Thomas. I don't know. He looks better better than we've seen him in a long time.
Well, there's some great pharmaceuticals in the United States. I think he's been given a little shot of something to bring him back to life. But, you know, they did this to him in the debates. Remember, he could last for about 10 minutes and then you saw him sort of like waning off. But, you know, I kind of feel bad for Joe. You know, he was sort of used as a bit of a puppet by the deep state over here, and I don't think he really knew what was going on too much while he was president. But, you know, he's out there, and that just kind of shows you that Democrats don't really have anyone to wheel out. He's the best. He's, you know, old man shaking his fist, and that's sort of the best they can do. So they're scrambling around right now to figure out who they can put to the front of their party. It's a major difference, Eric, between the US and the UK in that you don't have a leader of the opposition like we do. Once a party is defeated, they sort of go away, lick their wounds, work out who they are, and then a backroom tussle presumably happens to work out who then comes out as leader next time around. Like, who do the Democrats see as their leading figure right now?
Well, look at who the last two Democratic icons were in the party. It was Barack Obama, and prior to Barack Obama, it was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was called the comeback kid. Nobody thought that any Democrat could actually unseat George H.W. Bush in '92. He was coming off of the victory in Iraq. His approval ratings were in the high 80s, low 90s. And then you had Bill Clinton, who at the time many people thought was too cerebral and just could not actually connect. You had Barack Obama, of course, who gave that amazing speech during the 2004 Democratic convention. Of course, that catapulted him to rock star status. But these were not people who, as you say, went into this back room and they actually wheeled out the red carpet for them to actually lead the party. They had to actually fight and take it. And in the case of Bill Clinton, no one thought that he would. In fact, many Democrats at the time were not even going to run against George H.W. Bush because they just thought he was invincible.
Christopher, I think if you said to most British people, who is the leader of the opposition in America, we would be kind of baffled by the question because it is so different to how we operate in the UK, with Kemi Badenoch taking on Starmer every Wednesday at PMQs pretty much, being there, holding him to account. It's probably one of the things that we do better than the Americans actually, politically.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think good opposition makes good government. And when we've seen, I mean, we're seeing what happens now. We saw it when Tony Blair had this huge majority, and he went into Iraq, actually. When there are huge majorities, a government with a majority is a good thing because they can make decisive action. But when the majority is too big and the opposition is completely obliterated, that actually doesn't create good government, in my opinion, because you need to have a little bit of that jeopardy within that government to make sure that they're held properly to account and they make proper decisions. We're seeing it now. Now, where was this Joe Biden, by the way? Hello, Joe. Nice for you to turn up. Just in the nick of time, we see as well that you're finally here. I'll give you just a name to throw in the mix of the star who thinks that they might be up for once again challenging Donald Trump. And she was here in the UK just last week, and she confirmed that she's not ruling out running again against Trump. It was, of course, Kamala Harris, who spent her time on the South Bank in London when she was talking about her new book, spending the first 45 minutes only talking about Donald Trump before saying it was unhealthy to obsess about talking about Donald Trump. So there you go. That's your big star in the States who's going to take him on.
Well, let me tell you, talking of which, let's talk about Donald Trump and his White House renovation project. You teed it up beautifully for me there, Christo, because he is, of course, planning this very controversial 90,000 square foot development to give the White House a formal ballroom for the first time in history. It's going to cost $350 million. There's a lot of people speculating about what the name of the room would be. The president gave a little bit of a hint about that in the last couple of days. Here we go.
Well, we've raised a lot. We've raised over $350 million. It's a beautiful room, a big room. I don't have any plan to call it after myself. That was fake news. Probably going to call it the Presidential Ballroom or something like that. We haven't really thought about a name yet.
Do you think he will call it the Presidential Ballroom, Eric, or will he go with the Trump Ballroom after all?
Well, considering it will likely be draped in 14-karat gold and it's going to be very gaudy looking, I think he should name it after himself.
What do you think, Christo?
I mean, I wouldn't mind if he named it after himself. And what's interesting as well is when you look at the way in which it's being reported, and I read a really interesting piece, I forget where it was now, about how many Democrats are absolutely horrified by the fact that he's knocked down some of this wing of the White House, the East Wing. But actually, it was completely not fit for purpose. And when people were entertaining in the White House, they were in tents on the lawn when there used to be big presidential affairs. I had no idea about that. So at first, your first reaction probably is, well, is he sort of desecrating the White House? But when you realise that the White House isn't fit for purpose, this ballroom is absolutely necessary. So, you know, I wouldn't mind it being called the Trump Ballroom, or I don't know, I think that's a nice name.
Well, it's one of these stories, of course, that people are just using politically. You know, those people who hate Donald Trump are just seizing on it straight away. In fact, staff at CNN News Channel were actually criticised by their chief, Mark Thompson, who has said today that they have got to stop covering this because they said the viewers aren't interested in it at all. And they were saying, Thomas, that really, come on, guys, like, you're using this as a stick with which to beat Donald Trump. And it isn't going down well with the public because the public are going, well, it isn't taxpayers' money. And if he wants to improve our most important public building in the White House in order to host fundraisers, then why shouldn't he?
Yeah, and I think they're pushing back and saying, you know, all these Democrats that are outraged, will you pledge that you won't hold any events in that ballroom? Of course they will. But I saw Hillary Clinton is causing a big fuss about it, and I saw some in the MAGA camp saying, well, let's call it the Monica Lewinsky Ballroom. Maybe that'll be the name. So we'll see what happens. But it's gonna, if there's one thing Trump can do, he can build. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it will be beautiful, and it will be used for events for many more years, I'm sure. Christo, go on, you're going to get in.
Can I just say that why weren't the Democrats more upset that events were being held in a tent? I mean, why aren't CNN outraged about that? Because I would say that that's quite embarrassing. How about the Biden ballroom? There's some nice, you know, alliteration there. What do you think the chances are of that?
I don't think he's going to call it the Biden ballroom.
Well, out of the AutoPen ballroom if he was.
It'll be the AutoPen ballroom, as Thomas said.
That's actually funny.
That was very good. That was very good. I feel like we should explain that because every time we talk about the AutoPen, a lot of viewers actually don't know at home what that means. Just to explain, Thomas, this is the idea that a lot of documents were signed by not Joe Biden, but an electronic pen.
They have a really cool machine that, like, you know, does the president's signature, and every time there's a new president, they reprogram the machine. But apparently, most of the pardons that Biden signed, Fauci included, were done by the AutoPen. So there's a case, I think it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and they're going to figure out if actually these pardons are worth it. So we'll see what comes out.
Christo has one of those for signing autographs, don't you? For all the signed photos you get asked for.
We don't have an auto pen. What we have is an auto PM, which is a prime minister who is robotic, soulless, and basically has nothing to offer. So yeah, there we go. We've got something here. But you're right. Any one of you want a signed photo, I'm available.
Right, I think we've pretty much come to an end, guys. As we said, we are watching that situation, of course, as well in Jamaica, which is Hurricane Melissa. Thomas, just briefly, it looks bad. Like it might be the worst hurricane that area has ever seen.
Yeah, this year actually has. We haven't seen many hurricanes at all, and there's been some people that are claiming, well, the government's been shut down, so all of a sudden we don't have any bad weather anymore. So we wonder what's going on there. But it is looking like it could be a pretty bad one in the Caribbean. We thought we were going to get away with it, but maybe not.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Christo Fufas in London, thank you so much. Eric Ham, thank you very much. Great to see you again, as always, Eric. Thank you to you at home as well for getting in touch with me this evening on the website. And thank you, Thomas Corbett-Dillon. Always lovely to see you and nice to have another Brit in town here with me. I didn't even show you the photos from my week's holiday going around Washington and all the areas. I might show you those tomorrow night. I'll be here at midnight. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. Here's your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, things are going to be a bit mixed through today. There will be quite a bit of sunshine on offer, but also some rain at times too. A bit of a murky, drizzly start across some southern counties, and whilst a lot of this rain is going to clear away, some far south-southwestern parts will stay quite grey, and there could be a bit more drizzly rain to push its way in. Otherwise, we're looking at sunny spells for many of us, but also quite a few showers, these mainly pushing their way in across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, some of them feeding into other areas too. Temperatures are going to be around or a little bit below average for some, especially towards the north, further south, nearer normal with highs of around 15, possibly even 16 Celsius. As we go into this evening, we're going to stick with the showery theme across western parts of Scotland in particular. Some of them could be quite heavy. Further east, a little bit cloudier across some parts of Aberdeenshire and towards the far northeast of Scotland, with a few bits of rain here as well. More showers to come through this evening across parts of Northern Ireland. Plenty of showers feeding into northwest England and North Wales. Elsewhere across many parts of England and Wales, ending the day largely fine, albeit cloud and rain across the far southwest will push its way northeastwards as we go through the start of the night and becoming a bit more widespread as we go overnight as well. So central counties of England and Wales likely to be pretty cloudy and pretty wet through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Elsewhere, some clear spells here and there, yes, but also a fair few showers as well. For many, it's actually going to be a slightly chillier night than last night, more widely seeing temperatures dropping into single figures, could get close to freezing in some sheltered spots of Scotland. As we go through tomorrow then, quite cloudy, wet at times across the southern third of the UK, more rain pushing in from the west and southwest. Further north, similar to today really, so there will be some sunny spells around, but also quite a few showers, these heaviest, most frequent across western parts of Scotland. Again, a north-south split when it comes to temperatures, cooler in the north, relatively mild further south. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.